Hello and welcome to the Driver of the Weekend video for the French Grand Prix, the video in which my massive data algorithm decides the driver of the weekend based on performances in practice, in qualifying and also the race. There are about 28, maybe 29, I've kind of lost count, I've slightly added new categories that this algorithm looks at. It looks at performances against yourself as an individual across the whole season and also performances against your teammates. Now, for a full explanation of each of these categories and their justifications and exactly how they work, then please check out the video that I will link in a card in the corner. Equally, in this video, we'll be comparing my data algorithm outputted ranks to my opinion ranks which I made on Sunday, and then also to your audience average ranks in which I requested you guys to submit them using the link in the description down below on that video that I made on Sunday. We'll then be totaling up all of those scores throughout the season and then seeing who has performed the best so far in the first 7 races. So without further ado, we will jump on into the driver of the weekend for the French Grand Prix. And we just briefly take a look at the practice driver of the day. 20 is the maximum score that you could possibly achieve and 0 is the worst score that you could possibly achieve. And interestingly, the two AlphaTauris were at either ends of the spectrum in terms of practice. However, this does not have a significant weighting for the overall end algorithm, so we will swiftly move on in to qualifying overall. And it was Fernando Alonso who was declared to have the best qualifying so far. Then it was Carlos Sainz who finished P5. Then Max Verstappen on pole position, Pierre Gasly, then Lewis Hamilton in P5. Then Giovinazzi, Bottas, Latifi, Norris, Schumacher, Russell as well. Then Ocon, Vettel, Perez down in the bottom half of the top 10, or not, sorry, outside of the top 10, near the bottom half of the field. Then Mazepin, Stroll, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Leclerc as well, and then Raikkonen. Now, within each of the categories, there are teammate and individual performances, like I said at the start of this video. Now, these categories are all kept separate until the very end, where we take the majority, a higher weighting percentage of the individual performances versus your teammate performances. So yes, how you perform against your teammate does come into it, but it does not weigh significantly on the overall outcome. Then from qualifying, we take a look at the race driver of the day, and this was declared to be Max Verstappen, only just ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Then George Russell, putting his Williams in P12 on pace, was P3 for the race driver of the day. Then it was Sebastian Vettel who came into the points as well. Then Pierre Gasly, Fernando Alonso, Lando Norris, Mick Schumacher, interestingly. Then Valtteri Bottas, Giovinazzi, Mazepin, Ricciardo, Stroll, Latifi, Sainz, Ocon, Raikkonen, Tsunoda, Perez, all the way down at the bottom, but miles ahead of Leclerc. Now, one thing that this algorithm does not look at is things like strategy, tyre preservation, or overtakes, like Lando Norris, who put in stellar overtakes on Fernando Alonso and a couple of other drivers. Same with Daniel Ricciardo, or Perez, who did go long and extend that strategy. Max Verstappen, who put in an incredible strategy as well. Things like that come into my opinion rankings and your guys' opinion rankings, but that is not what this data algorithm looks at. It purely looks at lap time set, positions on particular laps, where the car should be in terms of its pace overall, and also how you performed against your teammate, with the aim of producing something that has little bias in it whatsoever towards any particular driver. And like I said, this does regularly go under revisions and sort of optimizations, as well, as nothing is ever going to be fully perfect. However, there are different ways of doing things, and there are ways that are somewhat more optimized and some ways that are less optimized. So if you have any suggestions of improvements for this data algorithm after you have seen the category explanation video, then please let me know in the comments below and I will be more than happy to make an addition. But now what we need to do is mush these 3 categories together to form the driver of the weekend. And to do that, we take 2% of practice, 28% of qualifying, and 70% of the race. The race has the most significant weighting in these scores, and Max Verstappen was declared the French GP driver of the weekend, only just ahead of Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso in P3, then Gasly, Russell, Norris, Vettel, Schumacher, etc, 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 all the way down to Charles Leclerc at the back. Now, by all means, feel free to completely disagree / agree with these data algorithm outputs, but like I said, it is based purely on numbers and not at all on strategy or overtakes or any particular memorable moments of the Grand Prix. That is where my opinion ranks and your guys' opinion ranks come into it. But now what we're going to do is compare this set of data ranks to my opinion ranks and your average audience ranks as well. So on screen is the ordered data-derived ranks with Max Verstappen at the top and Charles Leclerc at the bottom. Now we have my opinion ranks, and equally I have also bumped up Lewis Hamilton, who was 15 out of 20, he is now 17 out of 20. Joint with Sergio Perez, I've equally moved a couple of drivers down as well. But interestingly, I rated Norris quite highly and the algorithm only put him P6. However, we've also both put Raikkonen and Leclerc at the bottom. Then averaging out all of the audience ranks that were left on that Sunday's video, we end up with this order here. You also put Max Verstappen as the driver of the weekend, but you put Sergio Perez as P2 and Lando Norris in P3. So we have all had the same driver of the weekend, but slightly different top 3, 4 and also 5. However, equally interestingly, myself and you guys have the same bottom 4. Nikita Mazepin, Carlos Sainz, Kimi Raikkonen and Charles Leclerc. With the data-derived ranks having the same bottom 2 as Raikkonen and Leclerc, however Sainz is just a little bit higher up and so is Nikita Mazepin. But totaling up the French Grand Prix scores on screen with the remaining races that have happened so far this season, we end up with a data-derived driver of the season that looks a little bit like this. Max Verstappen at the top by some distance to Lando Norris, then George Russell, Mick Schumacher, Lewis Hamilton as well, then Kimi Raikkonen, Esteban Ocon, Charles Leclerc, Pierre Gasly and Giovinazzi is the top 10. And interestingly, it does not think that Sergio Perez is having a very great season. It has ranked him in P19 and Yuki Tsunoda in P20. Whereas adding up all of my opinion ranks for the 7 races that have happened so far, we have also put Max Verstappen and Lando Norris in P1 and P2. But I have so far put Lewis Hamilton in P3 and Sergio Perez in P4. And then other than that, it just sort of falls apart. We both have Alonso in P11. And again, that's about it. They're about the only real similarities between the data ranks and my opinion ranks. Then adding up all of the audience scores, you have also put Max Verstappen as the driver of the season so far, but only just to Lewis Hamilton. You have rated Lewis Hamilton quite highly so far this season, and also Valtteri Bottas. Interestingly, you have put him P3, whereas the highest that I have put him is all the way down in P14, and the data ranks have him down in P17. So you think that Bottas is having an exceptional season. And then again, other than that, there aren't really too many similarities across the 3 different sets of ranks. Now, of course, neither of these sets of ranks is remotely correct. There is literally no correct answer whatsoever. It all comes down to opinions, stats, figures, numbers, all sorts. There is no correct order whatsoever. And that is something that everybody has to take into consideration, that there is literally no correct order. There are no incorrect orders. There are just people's opinions. But that is all I've got for you today, guys, for the French Driver of the Weekend video. If there is anything that you would like to let me know of, then please let me know in the comments down below. But that is all I've got for you today, guys. I hope you have enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next episode with whatever and whenever I decide to make it. I'll see you guys then.